So whenever you have questions that ask how many solutions there can be, what you need to know is the formula for the discriminant. And that formula is d is equal to b squared minus 4ac. And if d is greater than 0, you have two real solutions. And if d is equal to 0, you have one real solution. And if d is less than 0, then you have two imaginary solutions. So this applies if you have a quadratic equation. And for this question, you're given two equations for some type of system. And let's just plug in y into the bottom one, so right into here. So writing that out, you have rx plus sy, which is x squared, is equal to t. And our quadratic equations are usually written in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So let's try to get this equation to match this form. And so doing that, we can just move this x squared to the front. So sx squared plus rx minus t, by moving this to the other side, is equal to 0. So now we know our a is s, we know our b is r, and we know our c is negative t. Okay, so let's just plug everything into our discriminant. So we know our discriminant d is equal to b squared, which is r squared, minus 4 times a, which is s, times c, which is negative t. So simplifying this, d is equal to r squared plus 4st. And the question is asking for when there's more than one solution. So it has to match this case where the discriminant is greater than 0, which means r squared plus 4st, which is our discriminant, has to be greater than 0. And that answer choice is F. So for this question, we were given some type of arithmetic sequence, and you need to know what is the 50th term. So the formula for arithmetic sequence is a sub n, where this is your nth term, is equal to a sub 1, which is your first term, plus n, which is your term position, minus 1 times d, where d is your common difference. But the question only gives us the third and the fourth terms. So how can we find the 50th term if we don't know what the first term is? Well, if we work backwards using what we were given, we can solve for our first term and then plug everything back in to find our 50th term later. Okay, but first we got to find the common difference. So our fourth term is 18, and our third term is 13. So what's the difference between them? Well, it's just 5 if we take the difference. So we know that d is equal to 5. Alright, so our nth term, if we say a sub 4, which we know is 18, is equal to a sub 1 plus our term position, which is 4, minus 1 times our common difference, which is 5. So a sub 4 we said is 18, and we can now solve for a1. So 18 is equal to a1 plus 3 times 5, which is 15. So 18 is equal to a sub 1 plus 15. A sub 1 is equal to 3. So now we can plug everything in and solve for the 50th term. So a sub 50 is equal to our first term, which we found to be 3, plus our term possession, which is 50, minus 1 times the common difference, which we know is 5. So a sub 50 is equal to 3 plus 49 times 5. And you plug this into a calculator, you get a sub 50 is equal to 248, which is A. So for this question, we have some kind of probability going on. We have Mike playing a game where he has to flip a penny, a nickel, and a dime at the same time, and he's trying to get heads to get 3 points for them. And so it wants to know what is the expected value of x, where x is the number of points that he will get. Okay, so let's find the expected number of points per flip. Well, first we got to start with the probability. So the probability of getting heads we know is 1/2. And the amount of points you get every time you get heads, we were told, is 3. So that means our expected value really is 1/2 times 3, because you have a 50% chance of landing on heads, And so 50% of the time you will get 3 points. So mathematically, you have 3 over 2. And he's flipping a penny, a nickel, and a dime, which is just 3 coins. So you have 3 times 3 over 2, which is 9 over 2, which is h. So this question is asking, do you know your values of sine of theta or sine of x? And if you don't know them off the top of your head, you can always get them back by using the unit circle. So as a refresher, if you draw out some circle, you can get the values of cosine of theta and sine of theta from it. So what you need to know is that if we cut this into segments, we know that the area on the right hand side, this corresponds to theta of 0 and theta of 2 pi. Up here is theta of pi over 2, and on the left hand side is theta is pi, and here's theta is 3 pi over 2, or is also equal to negative pi over 2. So these are our theta values. So those are the values that you'd be plugging into here. So like, okay, great. Let's say I want to say what is cosine of pi. But like, what does this tell me? Like, how do I know what this value is? Well, on the unit circle, you know that from the origin outwards, it's always 1. So this is a distance of 1, this is a distance of 1, this is a distance of 1, and this is a distance of 1. So if we take this to be our x-axis, and we take this to be our y-axis, then we have a coordinate plane. We have a coordinate system. So the coordinate system of the unit circle, it's always that cosine of theta is your x value, and sine of theta is your y value. Okay, so let's take an example. What is the sine of pi over 2? Okay, so sine of our theta, pi over 2, relates to this one. So sine is the y-axis. So how far up along the y-axis are we? You're 1 unit up. So sine of pi over 2 is 1. Okay, so what is sine of pi? Okay, well, sine of pi, we're here, and that's the y-axis. So going up on the y-axis, we have 0 units. So this is just 0. It's saying for this question, from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, so from this area only, when do we have the absolute value of sine over theta greater than or equal to 1? Well, we know that this is 1, and everything beneath here is going to be less than 1. But since it's asking for the absolute value, we know that negative 1 is also 1, which means moving up along here is everything's also going to be less than 1. So you're only at 1 here and here for the absolute value of sine of theta, which means that sine of pi over 2 on this unit circle is 1 unit up, sine being on the y-axis is 1, and sine of negative pi over 2 is negative 1. But since we're taking the absolute value of them, you know that this becomes positive 1 also. And every other point along the unit circle is going to be less than 1. Right here is less than 1, less than 1, less than 1, less than 1, and over here is getting closer and closer to 0. So that means the only answer could be A. The only points where sine of theta is greater than or equal to 1 is negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. So for this question, we're told that there's some ray PK that bisects some L, P, and M. And whenever something bisects it, that means you're cutting the angle perfectly in half, which means the angle here is equal to the angle here. So let's call this Y, and let's call this Y. And we know that LPM, which is this whole angle, so 2Y, is equal to 11x. And we know LPK, which is just Y, because we go from here to here, is 4x plus 18. And so what is KPM? Okay, we know KPM is just going to be 4x plus 18, but we need to solve for x. So we know that 2y is equal to 11x, because y here and y here, if you add them together, you get this bigger angle. So with that being said, we can just say that 2 times 4x plus 18, substituting in this y here, is equal to 11x. And so we have 8x plus 36 is equal to 11x. And then 36 is equal to 3x, which means x is equal to 12. And is asking for KPM, which is just y. So we just got to plug in what we found for x into here. So 4 times 12 plus 18 is 48 plus 18, which is equal to 66 degrees, which is K.